Breaking news. The Supreme Court has denied Donald Trump's request to delay his sentencing in his criminal case. He is scheduled to be sentenced tomorrow, though he is not expected to receive jail time. As of tomorrow, he will officially be sentenced. For his conviction on 34 felony counts in New York, the Supreme Court reviewed and ruled on the matter, rejecting Trump's request. The issue of presidential immunity remains a significant topic of debate. Trump has argued that a president must have immunity to effectively perform their duties, claiming that without it, future presidents may avoid making important decisions. For fear of prosecution, the Supreme Court's ruling has been seen as a major legal setback for Trump. Some have speculated on how he will respond to the decision, given his history of contesting legal challenges. Legal analysts note that this decision reflects the Supreme Court acting as a check on presidential power. 5 justices ruled against Trump's request, signaling that the court is willing to place limits on claims of immunity. The final verdict on Trump's broader political future will ultimately be decided by voters in the upcoming election. Meanwhile, he remained composed in court as the verdict was read, with the jury confirming the guilty decision on all 34 counts. Legal experts emphasize that the Supreme Court's role in this matter is crucial in determining the limits of executive power. Trump's defense had relied on the expectation that the justices, including those he appointed, might rule in his favor. However, the ruling suggests that the court prioritized legal precedent over political considerations. Many believe that the justice system must be able to hold leaders accountable before elections, reinforcing the principle that no one is above the law. This case serves as a reminder of the balance between executive authority and legal accountability in the United States. They worked quickly on something that will be discussed for years to come, an extremely important case. Instead, they did what was required by law. The ruling came down like a lightning bolt, dismantling any remaining legal arguments, whether about disqualifying him from ballots, rejecting his immunity claims, or other legal challenges. The decision made one thing clear: no one is above the law. The reaction from his inner circle was immediate and intense. Breaking news. The United States Supreme Court has announced that it will hear Donald Trump's immunity case on April 22nd. This is a significant decision. Some experts argue there was no constitutional or legal reason for the Supreme Court to take up the case, as no precedent exists granting a former president immunity from prosecution for alleged crimes committed while in office. The Supreme Court has the ability to make a ruling quickly, which could impact the timeline for a potential trial. The case is about the legal justification of his actions leading up to and on January 6, 2021. Trump has not acknowledged any wrongdoing, instead defending his response during those critical hours. When the appeals court ruled that he did not have presidential immunity, Trump was asked by a reporter whether a president is constitutionally bound by any legal limits while in office. His response suggested that a president should have broad authority, even implying that a president could take extreme actions. Trump's legal team, already facing significant challenges, appeared even more strained. This was supposed to be a moment of legal vindication, a case that could reinforce his legal standing. Perhaps he expected the Supreme Court to dismiss the case outright or rule decisively in his favor. Instead, the ruling delivered a major legal setback. Breaking news also emerged regarding Trump's moves to freeze foreign aid. During his administration, funds meant for nonprofits and contractors working with USAID were halted. Trump sought approval from the Supreme Court to keep the funding freeze in place, though the issue is still being litigated in lower courts. For years, Trump believed that the judiciary operated like his political allies or supporters, but courts function based on legal precedent, not personal loyalty. This ruling rejected his claims, reinforcing the reality that legal processes must be followed. As the decision settled in, his team scrambled to react, and his online responses reflected his frustration. The Supreme Court had spoken, and this time there were no executive powers to override it. The walls of legal protection were closing in. Take him literally and seriously, because today, a majority of the US Supreme Court made a significant ruling. If Donald Trump were to return to the White House and attempt actions that he believes are legally justified under federal law, the question of presidential immunity would come into play. The ruling has raised concerns about the extent of immunity a president might have for actions taken while in office. Trump's advisors had anticipated this moment, but nothing fully prepared them for his reaction. Phones rang, lawyers exchanged tense glances, and some braced themselves to explain the decision in terms simple enough to avoid further outbursts. Meanwhile, in a separate room, Melania reportedly glanced at the TV, sighed, and continued scrolling on her phone, seemingly unfazed. But Trump was losing his composure. "I want them all fired," he allegedly shouted, apparently unaware that Supreme Court justices, unlike contestants on The Apprentice, cannot be dismissed at will. Aides scrambled to explain, but their words were drowned out as Trump expressed frustration, claiming betrayal by justices he had appointed himself. The situation behind the scenes was chaotic, with advisors debating how to respond. Could they frame the ruling as a positive? Could they shift blame? Some staffers resorted to frantic internet searches for possible legal maneuvers. As expected, Trump took to social media, venting his frustration. Meanwhile, conservative media outlets faced a dilemma: defend the justices or side with Trump. Some anchors hesitated, opting for commercial breaks rather than taking an immediate stance. At Mar-a-Lago, the atmosphere was one of pure chaos. This ruling was a major setback for Trump, particularly in his legal battles. His strategy, delaying and contesting cases, now faced a serious roadblock. Analysts, including some typically aligned with him, noted that this outcome was foreseeable. Even the conservative justices he appointed recognized the limitations of presidential immunity. With this ruling, Trump's legal defenses and political ambitions have been dealt a significant blow, and his team must now navigate a new and uncertain path forward.